Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to CertaPay's Coffee Break. We're so glad you're joining us this morning. We have covered some great topics, and I wanted to let you all know we now have all of the coffee breaks on our website. So if you go to the website and scroll to the right where you see the News tab, you'll see the HR Coffee Breaks and other webinars are added in there so that you can get all copies of our coffee breaks from the past 12 weeks, and this one will be up shortly after we complete it today. So what we're talking about, I'm Rachel Camilla, your host, and I'm on the line with Cindy Merkel, our moderator, and I do see some other members of the CertaPay HR team on the line as well. Janet Lang is with us, and Gina is with us this morning. I see Claire. Welcome, everybody. We're so glad you're all here. So let's dig in, because this morning we're really talking about some important dates and deadlines that are coming. We've got schools coming back. We've got a lot of stuff that's kind of happening right now. So we just wanted to talk about some of these things and just kind of put it in your ear so you think about it, and any of you will be ahead of the game if you make some changes now that may benefit you down the road. So let's see. Doing a couple of mutes here. Don't forget, if you guys pop in, please mute your phones. If you're not already muted when you get here, mute your phone for us. That keeps the background noise down. All right. So first things first, a lot of people are asking about extensions to the PPP or a new PPP loan benefit that might be available, or some extensions to unemployment or whatnot. So if we take a look at the House and the Senate, what are we dealing with here? Well, they are going on their normal summer break. As we know, normally in a normal year, they would go on break and we wouldn't hear from them. They'd all be in their home districts during these weeks, but this is not a normal year. So what that means is they could be called back to session at any point. But the way it looks now, we've got the House going out on summer break starting August 1st. So their last day in session is July 31st. The Senate goes on summer break on the 8th. So their last day in session is the 7th. That means if we're going to see some changes to the PPP or extensions or some new bills, it's going to be in the next couple of weeks. So keep your eyes out for that. Pay attention to the news, and we'll keep you updated as well as we know more. But look to some possible new bills or changes or extensions in the next 2 weeks. After that, there probably won't be a whole lot of changes for an entire month. So what does that actually mean? If we see changes or don't see changes, it will definitely have an impact on all of us. So some of the things that we know are happening. We had some I-9 changes that made it easier to verify eligibility to work without having to touch the identification. So those expansions are going back to normal at the end of this week. So that means at the end of this week, unless there's some other extension, you will have to physically verify identification again, as you previously did. So that's kind of going back to normal at the end of this week. Now, there's a couple other things that aren't quite back to normal yet. So it talks about, the extension talks about expired List B documents, meaning if somebody's license has expired, or if there's something that that somebody's providing to you that is an expired List B document, we will be able to accept that expired document with a 90-day window from when they say that we need to have updated documents, and we haven't had that date happen yet. So we're in a window right now where if somebody, you have to physically verify it, but if they give you an expired driver's license, it's still okay because they may not have had an opportunity to go get a new license. So you have this 90-day window from the date they tell us that you have to start counting the 90-day window, and they haven't told us that yet. So you're okay if somebody provides you with an expired List B document. Now, the other thing is H-2B visas. If somebody who was here with a current visa, but now it's expiring in this window of time, it's okay for them to stay and work in this country under that same expired visa through September 11th to be exact, but anyway, through September. That may or may not change. That's the way that looks right now. So don't be so worried about an H-2B visa that expires right now. That one is still okay through September. So that's the I-9. The unemployment $600 boost will end for the week ending, the work week ending July 24th or July 25th, depending on, you know, where that pay cycle ends. So anybody who is out on unemployment and getting their unemployment benefits plus that 600 boost, that 600 is going to end. We don't know about an extension to that. We don't know if there's going to be one, something we'll look for in the next 2 weeks. But the current plan under the CARES Act, where we had that boost, is going to end for all those individuals on unemployment. That will end on the 24th and 25th. And then along the same lines, the unemployment dollars themselves, so whatever they are for the particular state, people may have already reached their max. So at this point, we're several months in, if somebody's been on unemployment this whole time, they most likely already used all of the dollars available to them. And so the unemployment dollars that somebody receives at this point are going to run out. So if you need employees, if you are hiring, if you have space for people, what I would say is start looking for people now. Send out the ads on social media, send out a place where people can apply for your business, because there's going to be people who maybe didn't try so hard to get back to work or find work. They'll be looking now. So if you have space and you need to add those numbers back, and remember, to get your PPP loan forgiven, you've got to have the headcount back up. Now's a great time to refill those other positions. People are going to start to look. We muted you, Jeff. Okay, so that brings us to the PPP loan dollars. A lot of people have already spent those dollars. That means if they were counting on those loan dollars to keep the business afloat and they don't have the sales to support it, there may be some issues now with businesses that are struggling or really working to stay in business and figure out, how do I keep my head count? How do I get forgiven? How do I keep dollars coming in? So again, looking for another stimulus boost of some kind. We may get some more information in the next 2 weeks, or you may have to make some changes to accommodate those loan dollars running out and whatnot. There has been a moratorium on evictions and foreclosures and, mortgage payments and whatnot. So most states have an individual timeline on that. I've looked at all of the states. I don't see anyone beyond August. So there have been, as we went through, they extended it through June, and then they extended it through July, and then they extended it into August. So I don't see any others at this point that have extended into September. So another thing to be mindful of, if somebody doesn't have enough money to pay their rent, they may be in a really difficult position after August. So keep that in mind, that something else we're looking at. And finally, FFCRA is still in place. This does not expire until the end of the year, December 31st. However, again, there's limits. So 80 hours of sick pay, 12 weeks under the expansion of FMLA for childcare reasons. And so people may have already used the limits available there. And we'll talk about that in a little bit when we talk about schools. But FFCRA is still in place and still active through the end of the year. And those are paid leave dollars that if you pay those wages to individuals who qualify, you subtract them straight off of your payroll taxes due on your 941. How we doing, Cindy? Any questions?
No, go ahead. Keep going.
All right. So the other big thing that's happening right now is schools. So here we are mid-July. A lot of states have schools that return in August and then certainly September. So we're really faced with what's going to happen here. Each state is doing it a little bit differently. So you might see, make sure wherever you are, know your state's guidelines. And some states are saying, we're going back to school, everybody can open up and go back. And some states are saying, we're going to open up at 50% occupancy and let the parents choose. Do you want to continue to use virtual school methods, or do you want to come back to the building? And then other states are saying, we are staying remote for now. So please take a look at what your state's guidelines are, and then you can figure out how to make decisions for your employees or for your business based on that. And it gets a little bit tricky because, like I mentioned, FFCRA is still in place. And if somebody does not have, if the schools are closed, if there's no child care available, then they're eligible for that expansion under FFCRA. But what does it mean if everybody is allowed to go back to school and somebody chooses not to send their child back to school because they're afraid or worried or whatnot? They don't qualify for FFCRA under the guidelines that we currently have. So something to be aware of, make sure you understand the guidelines for your state and the guidelines for FFCRA, so people won't automatically qualify. You also can't tell your employees to do one thing or another. So you don't want to say, I know your daycare center is open, so you have to send them. It's still their choice. Now, they won't necessarily qualify if the school is open and they choose not to send them. So a lot of these are going to be kind of a case-by-case discussion. So if you are faced with one of these, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We'll help you with that. And then, of course, if everybody is remote in your state or if schools are not returning to the building, that's a little bit of an easy one because we know that if they can't send them to school, they may actually have some childcare issues as a result of COVID. And so that's when the expansion of FMLA would fall into place. And so it's easy if all the schools are back and if none of them are back, those are easier. The gray area, of course, is right here in the middle where there's a 50-50 situation. So let's say it's 50-50, it's up to the parents to decide if they send kids back or not. Are these people eligible if they choose to keep their child home? Well, it's gonna, again, this is kind of a case by case and it depends on the situation. So let's say somebody decides they want to send their children back, but the school is limited. And so they say, no, you're gonna have to keep your child home. Well, they would qualify for the FFCRA 2/3 pay because they are in a situation where childcare is an issue as a result of COVID-19. Now, if there's a 50-50 option and somebody says, well, I'm going to choose to keep my children home, it's still kind of as a result of COVID-19. So if you fill out the paperwork and you pay 2/3 pay for that individual and then claim that tax credit, it fits in with the guidelines. So when you come up with these kinds of scenarios that you're not sure about, please reach out to us and let us help you with that. That's what CertaPay is here for, to help you with these difficult situations. We want you to know we're here to help you get through these difficult questions. So what if we're faced with another shutdown? We're already seeing some states that are tightening restrictions a little bit. So, and there's a chance that it won't happen at all. There's a chance that it will happen, and there's a chance that there will be varying degrees. So what we recommend is be ready. Have a plan. If you need to work on some of your policies right now, start working on that. And hopefully you don't have to activate it or use it in any way, but be ready just in case. Don't be one of the people that is completely caught off guard. If you have any positions where you can shift them to being remote right now, it might make sense to do that. That helps thin out your workplace so that you can create social distance if you have to. That maybe you give employees the option if there are some positions where you can create a remote work position for that particular individual, it might make sense. Or even have a template ready. So, okay, everybody's back in the office and we're functioning, with social distance and PPE and whatnot. But in the event that we're asked to social distance again, you can just plug and play a remote workforce scenario and be ready for that. Also, maybe, I talk about pivot or jump the shark. It's not out of the question that if your business is in trouble or in jeopardy in any way, think about it now. What can you do to move with this big wave instead of getting slammed against the ground? Can you change your products? Can you change your services? Is there anything that you can shift that will help you succeed, that will make a difference? Don't be afraid to put some things down and a plan down in case it comes to that. And that way you're ahead of the curve. So some final thoughts. In the next couple of weeks, we may see some changes from the House and the Senate, some bills that will help in some different scenarios. Over the course of the next month to 2 months, we're seeing quite a bit of things expire and some financial support dollars that are going to taper off. So we're going to start to see some changes culturally in the country, and pay attention to your state guidelines. It's very important right now to see what is your state doing and what are the guidelines within your state. Document everything you do. When you have people on FFCRA, please use the forms that we provide. Use any information that helps you. Document as much as you can. And again, trust your employees. Your employees are trying to survive just as much as you are. So give them the benefit of the doubt right now, particularly with heading back to school. I know that there are varying views out there, and so be mindful that there are varying views out there, and do what you can to work with the employees. Do the best you can. That's always where we are right now. We're all in this together. There are so many different things happening. Just do the best you can right now, and know that CertaPay is here for you. We value you and appreciate your business, and we will be here for you to work through all of these scenarios. All right, guys. Any questions today?
Rachel, can you go over the 80 hours, 2/3 sick, and then the extended FMLA? The question basically is how to pay the employees and what's eligible under the Act.
Okay. So with the FFCRA, the first 2 weeks is considered the sick pay portion, and that is full pay for an individual. So if the individual person is sick with COVID symptoms and is seeking medical attention, then they would qualify for up to 80 hours of pay. If they are diagnosed with a positive COVID result, they would be eligible for full pay. The full pay is based on a 6-month average of wages. So you're going to take all of the wages together and get an average hourly rate for that individual, and they would be eligible for up to 80 hours. It's 2 weeks of pay, but those are also an average. So it's not automatically 40 hours each week. If your employee works an average of 30 hours a week, then they would get 30 hours in the first week and 30 hours in the second week. That's their individual average. If it's a salaried employee, then they would get their regular salary for 2 weeks.
Rachel?
Yeah.
I should have been more clear. I just meant about the 2/3 from the daycare child perspective.
I was just going to cover the whole thing. So if an individual, so if an individual is caring for someone else, now that takes us to 2/3 pay, capped at $200 a day. And that would be an individual caring for a sick family member who needs help, or if they're caring for a child whose school is closed, daycare is closed, child care provider is not available. Now, an individual's child care provider could be a neighbor, a mother-in-law, a grandmother. It could be anyone who is now not available. That qualifies them for that initial 80 hours at 2/3 pay. Now, the extension beyond that for 10 more weeks is strictly connected to childcare. Employees have to be with you for at least 30 days, and then they would qualify for 10 more weeks at that 2/3 level. And that's just childcare issues. So school is closed, daycare is closed, childcare provider is unavailable. And so that's why with the summer session here, maybe we had the childcare issues, but going back to school, you think, well, they can go back to school. And there's a lot of states where that may not happen. So those individuals would still be eligible for the FFCRA under the expansion piece. Did I get it, Cindy?
Yes, ma'am. And that's actually the only question that if anyone has any questions, by all means, Rachel and I can both see the chat box if you want to type anything in.
I do have another question in that just came to me. Let me take a look. I've got a couple of, does this include DCF ID requirements? And Charlene, I'm not sure about that. And we may see some additional information about that in the next 2 weeks. And so you're talking about I-9 verification. If that is a list 2 item, then it would apply to that if it's specific to something that expires, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
What's the question exactly?
It says, does this include DCF ID requirements? So that's the Department of Children and Families. So I don't know if that isn't, I was specifically speaking to I-9 eligibility verification. So if you've got some different requirements that you have to abide by with DCF, that may be a different expiration date or a different extension. I am not aware of it, but we can look that up for you.
That might also differ state to state as far as
exactly
Department of Child and Care Services in each state. But the I-9 obviously is a federal document, so.
Right. Okay, I have another private one. Are there any FFCRA or other benefits for salaried employees who have had to quarantine at home due to medically? Oh, this is a good one. Okay, doesn't matter if the employee can work from home. This is a great question. So we talked about this last week. So when we look at the qualifications for FFCRA, broad statements from the CDC don't qualify. So if, let's say, the CDC says, if you're over 65, you should quarantine, yourself, blah, blah, blah. That does not automatically qualify somebody for FFCRA benefits. But if somebody travels to a state where when they return, that particular state is under a quarantine, that is a state mandate. So let's say, for example, Florida has a state mandate in place that says if you travel to Texas, you must self-quarantine for 14 days upon return. Yes, that automatically qualifies the individual for FFCRA, that paid leave. Provided they haven't already used their 80 hours, that salaried individual would qualify for 80 hours of their regular pay, capped at $5.11 a day for that full, whatever hours they have left, but for 2 weeks upon return, because the individual traveler has been mandated to quarantine. It's not a broad statement. When we look at FFCRA, this applies to individuals, and that mandate is for an individual traveler. So yes, that person would qualify. Now you ask about working from home. If somebody is able to work from home, then let them work from home. I think that's great. They can work from home for the next 2 weeks, and you don't have to process that through FFCRA. So working from home is always a great option. But yes, in that example, if there's a state mandate to self-quarantine following travel, then that qualifies under FFCRA.
Okay, Rachel, I do have a couple questions. The first one is, if an employee used the 80 hours at 2/3 pay, then the child is diagnosed with COVID and the child cannot go to daycare, are they entitled to the additional 12 weeks?
Yes, because that would be a child care issue as a result of COVID-19.
Okay, next question. If an employee is under FFCRA and is returning back to work after 12 weeks leave, she was full-time employee prior to the leave. She is stating she can return 2 days a week, which we can accommodate. What if she changes her mind later and wants to go full-time again? We have hired new employees to provide customer service during her leave. Do we have to provide her full-time work again?
So one of the provisions of the FFCRA under the paid leave expansion is that you do return the individual to their regular position post-pandemic. So if the individual has used up her full 12 weeks and she is available to return to work, the idea is that, yes, you will return her to the same position where she was before. Now, if she is saying to you that she can only return for 2 weeks, then, and you make that accommodation, or for 2 days a week.
Right.
I was thinking it correctly. So she can return for 2 days a week and you make that accommodation. You've now returned her to where she's saying she can return. So she chooses not to return to the full-time position and you offered it to her and she took a part-time role, that's okay. You offered her that position, so now you're out of the window. You don't have to offer her full-time down the road when she changes her mind. Now, it might be a conversation that you have, like, how do you want to do that? Do you want to really, to have the conversation and make sense of it? And then also make sure that you're fair across the board. If you want to say your position is returning to normal, if she is not available to work full-time, then that position is no longer available to her, but you're offering her a part-time position. So, it kind of depends on what exactly is happening in the conversation. So if she's going to return part-time, then that full-time position gets filled with somebody else because you offered it to her and she didn't take it. You don't then have to offer it to her again later.
Okay, the next question I have, is the employer required to implement FCCRA? Yes, you are.
You are. This applies to all employers under 500 employees.
That's actually the only other questions I have, Rachel. I don't know if any others were sent to you privately that I can't see, so.
Nope, that was all of them, just those couple. So I think that does it, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember, CertaPay is here for you, and we'll get through this together. We're going to have some really good coffee chats coming up in the next few weeks. So we look forward to having you again. Thanks again, and have a terrific day.
Just one more note. Instead of in the past where I have sent you all the links, they will be available on our website, so there's no need to send me all your emails unless you have a specific question that you want us to answer. But I would think that it should be up by tomorrow at the latest.
That's right. Check out our website, and you can find all the other coffee breaks in there. Okay, guys. Thank you. Have a terrific day.